The Nissan Leaf is widely regarded as the first modern mass-market EV to hit US roads. When it launched as a 2011 model year, the Leaf had a range of 73 miles and looked like a frog. Flash forward 12 years, we eventually get the Nissan Ariya. This is a premium electric crossover offering 3 times the range and power as the original Nissan Leaf. In today's video, we are going to see exactly what 12 years of EV evolution has done to Nissan. Before we start today's video, my name is Andrew Lambrecht. I'm a project engineer here at Ever, and I'm also a contributor at Inside EVs and Business Insider covering electric cars. If you're new to the channel, press the subscribe button to see weekly EV reviews and comparisons. And with that, let's rewind the clock for a second, because to totally understand both of these vehicles, we have to understand what the market was like when they launched. The original Nissan Leaf launched as a 2011 model year, and it proved to the world that mainstream electric transportation could, well, exist. It was a city-bound EV with simple tech and limited range. While it wasn't suitable for most people's only car, it could easily be a family's second or third vehicle. The Nissan Leaf demonstrated that electric transportation could be possible. When the Ariya came out as a 2023 model year, the EV landscape had shifted dramatically. By then, the Tesla Model 3 and Y were constantly breaking sales records, and improvements in range and charging meant that drivers could easily rely on EVs. The Ariya offered up to 304 miles of range and plenty of practicality thanks to its crossover form factor. Sadly, the Nissan Ariya was paused for the 2026 model year in the US due to a mixture of high import tariffs and its placement in a highly competitive segment. The Ariya is a huge improvement over the Leaf, but there are also magnitudes more EVs on the market now as there were in 2011. But now let's see how these two cars stack up on paper. The original Nissan Leaf came with a 24 kilowatt hour battery pack, but in the 2016 model year, we got a 30 kilowatt hour one for the SV and SL. And in 2017, all Nissan Leaf trims got the larger 30 kilowatt hour pack. This battery is good for an EPA range of 107 miles when this car was new, and it can accept up to 50 kilowatts on a DC fast charger. This whole package weighs in at 3,323 pounds, and the Leaf makes 107 horsepower thanks to a front-mounted electric motor. In comparison, the Ariya is a huge upgrade. This particular one is a 2024 ARIYA Platinum Plus, which is the highest trim level. The ARIYA Platinum Plus uses a 91 kilowatt hour battery pack, delivering an EPA range of 257 miles. It can also accept up to 130 kilowatts on a DC fast charger. This whole powertrain is comprised of 2 electric motors producing 389 horsepower and delivering a 0 to 60 time of just above 5 seconds. All in all, this package is a lot heavier than the original Nissan Leaf, weighing in at 5,057 pounds. When new, this 2024 ARIYA Platinum Plus had an MSRP of around $54,000, but today you can find used examples between $25,000 and $30,000 with pretty low miles on the odometer. For instance, this particular 2024 has about 24,000 miles and is priced at under $28,000. Now let's check out these cars' designs. Safe to say, the Nissan Leaf looks interesting. We have these bulging out headlamps and this overall side profile that kind of resembles a snail. This car measures in at 175 inches long, which is actually somewhat lengthy for a compact hatchback like this. This is 5.5 inches longer than the Chevy Bolt EUV. The Nissan Leaf sits 6.3 inches above the ground, and it has a drag coefficient of 0.28. Finally, the Leaf comes as standard with 16-inch alloy wheels, and they look just as exciting as a suburb in Bakersfield. The Ariya measures in at 182.9 inches long, measuring it in just a little bit shorter than the Tesla Model Y and Ford Mustang Mach-E. In terms of the aerodynamic profile on the Nissan Ariya, we get a drag coefficient of 0.297, which is pretty aerodynamic, but definitely not as aerodynamic as some other electric crossovers on the market. We get 19-inch alloy wheels as standard, though this particular Platinum Plus comes with 20-inch ones equipped. As standard, we get 6.3 inches of ground clearance, the exact same as the original Nissan Leaf, though if you get the 20-inch wheels, then that ground clearance is increased to 6.7 inches. In terms of storage, the Nissan Leaf gets a hatchback, revealing an actually substantial 24 cubic foot cargo area. This is more cargo volume than what you get in the Chevy Bolt and even the Model 3. We have a very low load floor area and just frankly plenty of space back here. Located next to this lovely shrub is the Nissan Ariya, and this car comes with a power tailgate that opens up like so, and we get 22.8 cubic feet of cargo volume. This is actually less cargo volume than the original Nissan Leaf. Unlike the original Leaf, we do get a lower load floor area that opens up like so. This particular one has the Bose audio system, so we get the subwoofer located right down there. And when you fold down the second row of seats, you get 59.7 cubic feet of cargo volume, which is actually double what the Nissan Leaf is when you have its second row folded. Overall, it's a little weird that the Nissan Leaf actually has more room behind the second row than the Nissan Ariya does, but the thing to note is that this is still pretty competitive for a crossover, though it is lagging behind some EVs on the market like the Tesla Model Y. Diving into the back seats of the Nissan Leaf, there's actually nothing really exciting going on back here. We don't get a center armrest, we don't get AC vents, and there is this weird transmission hub thing located in the back seats. There are actually some battery components located in here, but nevertheless, it kind of eats into your feet space. The seats are actually somewhat comfortable. They feel kind of like a glorified church pew with seat belts, but they're not terrible. Up front, the Nissan Leaf has two surprisingly well bolstered seats. There's actually really great bolstering on these seats, which is weird for a Nissan Leaf. What's also weird is this center shifting mechanism. So you put your foot on the brake, push up for reverse, down for drive, and push in for park. Other features include standard heated front seats and a USB port. We get 3 screens, one for your speedometer, one for your range estimate and power gauge, and this center display, and none of which are touchscreen. My favorite thing about this interior is the steering wheel, not the way it's shaped or anything like that. It's just made out of a very weird material, something I would expect to have been made in a middle school science lab. Other than that, we get a 4-speaker audio system with a surprising amount of bass, and I think this overall interior is a little weird, but it's generally easy to use. By contrast, the ARIYA Platinum Plus's back seats are very luxurious, and just frankly, they are luxurious. We get Napa leather seats, the outboard seats are perforated, they have a very nice stitching pattern, and they are heated. We also get a center armrest with 2 cup holders, a totally flat rear floor area, which is great for legroom. You actually get plenty of space back here, and even in the middle seat, it's quite comfortable. We get 2 AC vents, a USB-A port, and a USB-C port. We also get some nice materials back here, like this micro suede insert in the door, along with some more soft touch. Yes, there is some plastic in the lower portion of the door area, though we do get some wood surrounding this center console. The last thing to point out back here is that we get a panoramic opening glass roof, which makes this cabin look a lot more lively and open. Up front, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on in the Ariya. First off, since once again we have the Platinum Plus trim, we get these nice seats. They are heated, ventilated, and power operated for both the driver and passenger. But the more exciting thing is this center console, and all Ariyas get this as standard, but this center console can move forward and backwards. So there's buttons right here off to the left for the driver, and you can move this backwards to open up some more space in the driver's footwell. This center console area also has haptic buttons, and one such button opens up this table, and there's a little tray so you can push that back, and this is your secret storage compartment in the Ariya. Other nice amenities up here include a wireless phone charger, a USB-A port, a USB-C port, and this cool piece of wooden trim that hides the climate control menu. We get Japanese lantern-inspired ambient lighting in the doors, a head-up display, a heated steering wheel, a digital rear-view mirror, and a Bose audio system that packs a really good punch. The ARIYA Platinum's interior feels very avant-garde, and the nice array of materials make it feel very premium. Next up is software, and on the Nissan Leaf, there's nothing that exciting going on. We have FM AM radio, Sirius XM, and you can use Bluetooth or plug in your phone to play music. We do have a settings menu, which is right here, and it's very basic. So we got your Bluetooth to pair a device, and then you can play around with some of the audio settings, brightness, adjust the clock, etc. Really nothing much going on here. Through this center screen, we can also see our backup camera, which is a backup camera. Now moving over to the gauge cluster, we can see our range, our battery percentage, and our battery temperature off to the left. This little gauge off to the right here shows you the overall battery health. So this is based on a scale from 0 to 12. This particular Nissan Leaf shows 9 out of 12 battery bars remaining, so that equates to around 75% state of health. I think 75% state of health on a battery pack that's 9 years old with no liquid cooling is still pretty respectable by today's standards. We also have our power gauge located up there, so whenever you accelerate, the power bar will be filled in, and then when you regen, you can see some of those dots fill in off to the left. You can cycle through this screen to see some different menu items. So in particular, you can go here and you can see how long it will take to get to a 100% charge, charging at 6 kilowatts or 3 kilowatts. And you can also see the average energy economy of this car through its lifetime, which is 4.2 miles per kilowatt hour. Now moving up, we have our speedometer, which is located right up there. We can see our time, temperature. There's really nothing that crazy on the tech front in the original Nissan Leaf, but I think it does pretty much everything you would want an EV to do. On the software side, the ARIYA is a huge step above the Nissan Leaf, but it's important to remember that the Leaf was a very low bar. What works is that we have a volume knob located right there. It's easy to go in between tracks. We can change the fan speed really easily through these buttons, temperature as well. But what doesn't really work that well is options like the ventilated seats. So you have to press here, and then you can turn on the heated or ventilated seats. There is no button for that. And there is some other weird stuff. Like if you go into the map, and you click right there, there's this icon, and you press that, and it says a gas station, search near current location. Why do we have a gas station option in an electric car? This makes no sense. Now, what actually does make some sense and slightly works is the route planner. So say we want to go to Los Angeles, we type it in, click on the location, and then the car will set it as our destination. It lets us know that it's going to be finding the optimal route with the charging stations, which we want. So we press OK. And now the car is calculating our route. So if we zoom in, we can just see our route down to Los Angeles, and this is not factoring in any charging stops. And then if you give the car a little while, it will find out where we need to make the charging stops at. Okay, there we go. We can see our 3 charging stops, and then we press info. And now we can see exactly when and where we will need to stop to charge the ARIYA. As you can see, this map doesn't really feel that advanced compared to some other systems out there. It's relatively responsive, but it just doesn't really look that great. Nevertheless, not every EV has route planning, so we will take that win. And one of my favorite things, and we also got a sneak peek of that there, is the driving range. So here we can see just how far we can go with our current battery percentage. So right now we are sitting at 87%, 229 miles, and you can see exactly how far we can go on the map. There's not much when it comes to charging settings, but we do have a charge timer, and we can turn that on or off through here. One thing I don't love about this is whenever you turn it on, it just lights up, but when you turn it off, it doesn't actually say off, so it still looks like it's on. I don't really know what they were thinking there. While this car does have a charging timer, you can't adjust the current or anything like that on level 2. My one favorite app in this car is the GPS position, and if we click here, it tells us that there are 14 satellites measuring us, and we can see our exact latitude and longitude and altitude, and we are basically at sea level, so that 0 feet seems pretty accurate. If you prefer to use Apple CarPlay in the ARIYA, you can, and that feature is wireless. Shifting our direction to the gauge cluster, we can see our speed, we have our power gauge right there, and we can see our range. You can also cycle through this menu, clicking on this button right here, and you can see different view menus. So we can change our meter view to have more of a sporty performance look. There's other displays you can see, like your energy economy history, your torque going to the front and rear wheels, along with your map. I appreciate the customizability in this gauge cluster, and once again, since this is a higher trim level vehicle, we do have our head-up display located right there. Overall, this infotainment is fine. I'd say it's on like Kia Hyundai level. It's just really not as advanced as Tesla or Rivian or some of the more techie automakers out there, but it does pretty much everything you want it to. I think it looks relatively pleasant. Not a huge fan of the maps, though we do have an EV route planner. The other nice thing is that we do have wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. Compared to the original Leaf, this Nissan ARIYA is headed in the right direction. Up front, the Nissan Leaf has its charge port, and it looks a little goofy, and to open it, you actually have to press and hold on the key fob, or there's a button in the interior, and then you can open it up. As you'll see, we have two ports. We have our J1772. This is for your slow AC charging. This can do level 1 or level 2. And then off to the left, you get the CHAdeMO port. What's funny is that the Nissan Leaf S, and only the S trim in particular, does not come with the CHAdeMO port as standard. In fact, if you get a Nissan Leaf S without the quick charge package, and I believe this package was around $1,000 when this car was new, you'd only get the AC charging port, so no DC charging. And that AC port would be limited to 3.3 kilowatts. If you get the quick charge package, then this one can do 6.6 kilowatts, and then you can charge at 50 kilowatts on CHAdeMO. All 2017 Leafs come with a 30 kilowatt hour battery pack, and of which 28 kilowatt hours are usable. This particular Leaf with 25% degradation is showing around 21 kilowatt hours of total usable capacity. What's really cool about this Leaf is that it actually charges really quickly on AC and on DC. When I plugged into a CHAdeMO port, I saw a 10 to 80% charge time of just 18 minutes. Now, this car only has a total range of around 70 miles, but still, if you're out and about and you want to charge up pretty quickly, you can do that in the Leaf. And AC charging is also really quick. Since we have 21 kilowatt hours of usable battery capacity and an onboard charger of 6.6 kilowatts, you can go from 0 to full in under 4 hours. So yes, these Nissan Leafs do have some degradation, but they're still more than usable in daily driving. The Nissan ARIYA was the first Nissan product sold in the United States with a CCS port. So you got AC up there, and then you will have your CCS port down there. This car can charge at up to 130 kilowatts, and the charging curve is actually really good. You can charge from 10 to 80% in this vehicle in around 30 to 35 minutes. AC charging also sees a significant bump over the old Nissan Leaf, and this can charge at 11 kilowatts. Being heavier and less aerodynamic, and also having a lot more creature comforts in the cabin, the Nissan ARIYA isn't quite as efficient as the original Nissan Leaf. Still, out of spec was able to get 240 miles on a full charge in the ARIYA Platinum Plus with the large 20-inch wheels on its 70 mile per hour range test. But now, let's get these cars out on the road and see how they drive. First up is the Nissan Leaf. Acceleration. Definitely for cities, it's more than enough. The original Nissan Leaf, like this right here, makes 107 horsepower, and this particular 2017 with the larger battery pack weighs in at just over 3,300 pounds. Handling is fine, nothing too crazy in terms of the handling. I think it handles like any normal hatchback would, just maybe a little bit better considering we have a lower center of gravity. Now, accelerating onto the highway, it's good. It starts to really taper off once you're at like 50, 60 miles per hour. But when I recorded the 0 to 60 time, I got 9.98 seconds, and that was on a slightly damp road. So maybe if the conditions were better, we could get around 9.5, but I think the acceleration in here is fine. Definitely, it's not as quick as most modern EVs, but I still think it's good enough to get you up to speed. The Leaf feels surprisingly stable at highway speeds, and the road noise is not really that bad. I mean, it's probably higher than average, but given that this is a smaller economy car that's made for city driving, I'm pretty impressed. When you're driving the Leaf, there's three main drive modes, kind of. There's D, which is just drive, so if you let off the accelerator, it will coast. It coasts a little bit less. There's like just a tiny bit of regen as opposed to neutral, but drive mode will drive like a normal vehicle. And then B mode will give you a decent amount of regen when you let off, not enough to bring you down to a complete stop, and it's definitely not as strong as what you would get in, say, a Model 3 or a Chevy Bolt. And then there's Eco mode. Eco mode can be turned on in either D or B mode, and Eco mode just really relaxes the accelerator pedal. When I was doing some of the performance testing, I didn't really notice any difference between the acceleration in Eco or non-Eco mode. The one downside of these older Nissan Leafs are that there are no safety features. So no adaptive cruise control, no lane centering. It doesn't even have lane keep assist, blind spot monitor, anything like that. If you get a 2018 Nissan Leaf, so that was the big major refresh, then you can get Pro Pilot Assist that has lane centering and adaptive cruise control. But as for these older Nissan Leafs, you really don't get much. I really enjoy the driving experience of the Nissan Leaf. It's plain, it's simple, it's electric driving in its most fundamental form, and you can't really fault it for that. And all these years later, this car drives perfectly fine. All right, we are now driving the Nissan Ariya. So, this is a heavy car. It weighs in at just over 5,000 pounds, but I think the handling is pretty good. You can really feel the weight of this vehicle in corners, but it does still feel pretty sporty, which I like. This car can really hold the road. Now, horsepower. This Nissan Ariya Platinum Plus makes 389 horsepower, and in our 0 to 60 testing, we got 5.22 seconds, which is really quick. The one thing I don't love about the performance in this car is that the accelerator pedal is actually not as responsive as the accelerator pedal in the Nissan Leaf. While the Nissan Leaf only made 107 horsepower, whenever you press down, you got that power instantly. But in the Nissan Ariya, no matter what mode you're in, if you are in Eco, Standard, or Sport mode, and you floor the accelerator, there's a notable lag before you actually get that power. When you finally get the power, there is a huge surge of torque, which feels very impressive, but there is that lag to getting that power, and that just feels a little weird in an EV because most EVs aren't like that. Like the original Leaf, the Ariya does have a B mode, so if you put it into B mode, then you get some regen when you let off the accelerator pedal. But what's really funny is that there is an E-step button, and naturally you would think this is a one-pedal driving option because the Gen 2 Nissan Leaf 2018 through 2025 had a one-pedal driving mode, but not in the Ariya. So this is just kind of like an enhanced B mode. I couldn't really tell any difference. Maybe a little bit stronger regen when you're in E-step mode, but it's a little weird that you would have two buttons that do pretty much the same thing. Regardless, for one-pedal driving enthusiasts, there is no such mode in the Nissan Ariya. The one other annoying thing is that when you're in E-step mode and you let off the accelerator pedal, the brake pedal will actually move in. You will feel a little disoriented in this mode because you will reach for your brake pedal when you need to slow down further, and yet it will move away from your foot. I don't like that. But other than those few gripes, I really like the driving experience in the Nissan Ariya. It's very relaxed. There's a lot of good sound deadening in this cabin, so you don't get a lot of road noise or wind noise, and it just feels like a premium vehicle you're driving. The driving feel is still very relaxed once you're up to highway speeds, and my favorite thing about this car is the safety suite. So we get Pro Pilot Assist 2.0, and this has lane centering and adaptive cruise control, but it is hands-free, so you can take your hands off the wheel, and actually I will activate that right now. And now you can take your hands off the wheel and the car will continue driving on the highway. Pro Pilot 2.0 doesn't work on all highways, but it does work on pre-mapped ones, and all you got to do is just look forward to keep this system engaged. Now, on unmapped highways, you do have the same lane centering and adaptive cruise control, but you have to keep your hands on the wheel. And from my experience with ProPilot, I think this system does a fine job. I really like the way the Nissan Ariya drives. It feels kind of like a pseudo-luxury crossover, not as luxurious as an Audi e-tron or anything like that, but it definitely feels like a step above most of the mainstream EVs on the market. In terms of Nissan's EV evolution, the brand has made significant strides. And that's that. That's the evolution of Nissan's EVs. This wasn't really a comparison per se, but more of a litmus test to see how well Nissan has improved its EV game over the years. Nissan went from making little electric hatchbacks that were good for daily city use to really substantial electric crossovers with lots of space on the inside, lots of creature comforts, and just a really nice driving experience. That said, I still have a lot of respect for the little Nissan Leaf. I've taken this car on some road trips, albeit not very long road trips, and I've been daily driving this for the last month or so. Nissan did a lot of things right with the original Leaf, but now it's time to move on to the future. And sadly, Nissan has paused the Ariya for the 2026 model year in the United States, but at least we have the new 2026 Nissan Leaf. And in many ways, I think the new Leaf is an improvement over the Ariya. We get a better price, we get better efficiency, and I think the overall package appeals to a wider range of people. And with that said, I just think it's really cool to see how far Nissan has come in its electrification game. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider liking and subscribing, because then we can get more ad revenue, and then I can buy some sort of a cutting tool to get rid of this bush that's in the way of the camera. Thank you for watching.